Miguel is wrong regarding the canon being true. Spoilers ahead for those of you that haven't seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So I've seen countless people having discussions regarding Miguel's canon events and anomalies, and I just wanted to toss my hat into the ring of this discussion and poke holes in his viewpoints regarding this whole canon stuff. I want to start off by saying that I ultimately can empathize with Miguel. He is a product of his own material conditions and experiences. So obviously, from what he has experienced, he is acting out of fear. And that's a very human thing to do. He literally saw what he believes happened because he changed the events by replacing his dead self in that universe, and then the universe collapsing. That eventually affected what was the case, and perhaps that is true in his case. Does that also apply to Miles? Not necessarily. So firstly, he's wrong about the canon events because just because you can observe a canon event does not necessarily make it true. Just because he was able to observe it and experience it and seemed like there is this consistent repetition of data, obviously from other Spider-Men where their captains have died, their uncles have died, things like that have made the canon true, without getting into extremely meta commentary about how we create the stories and basically essentially create the heroic tragedies and that consistent repetition of it, and none of us have just been brave enough to break out of that notion. Regardless of that, Miles is in fact the outlier, which challenges the theory. So what do you do when new evidence is introduced? You retest the hypothesis. If Miles being the anomaly is in fact the outlier to what has happened, why didn't his universe just collapse? Why does he get to still keep going? And why does that we to believe that changed the fate of Spider-Man and everything like that? How come in the games you can have two Spider-Men, but in the movies world you can't? Where essentially does the canon begin and where does it end? Because to me, it seems like it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I'll get into that later. All right. Secondly, the philosophy of it. Humans have always had this fascination with destiny and fate. It's laughable to assume that any of us know the future. The same goes for Miguel. He's fighting to keep the order in the universe, yet he wasn't able to prevent Miles as an anomaly. What if his being an anomaly is also canon, fate, destiny? How would Miguel know? How would any of us know? Also, how come the universe worked out and it didn't collapse in the end if Miles is the anomaly? Again, this goes back to where does the canon begin and where does it end? How malleable is canon events that actually correspond and make sense to how everything actually works? Why couldn't Miguel have prevented Miles from even appearing as the anomaly? I guess because the Alchemex people, what was that, Doc Ock and all them, messed with timelines and pulling stuff from different realities and things like that too. But also, is that not canon then? Does that not become new canon? What essentially establishes canon and then isn't canon in that sense, right? And what ultimately becomes new canon? Plus, after just recently seeing the movie again, how come Miguel can help Gwen in retrieving the Vulture from the the Renaissance era world, and that not affect the canon, but then also be able to take her from that world without also affecting the canon? How are those Spider-Men missing from their other worlds not affecting any other malleable canon or stuff that's going on in that world? Also, is them being there in that Spider-Verse world also canon? That's the questions that we have there is how determined or specific is canon to this universe? And we just don't know. And I think that's kept fairly vague. And Miguel isn't giving us pretty much everything because maybe he doesn't even fully know too. Another thing that happened in the beginning was with Gwen and her dad, him being the captain. There was a canon event that was going to happen that the data person, the AI girl, algorithm lady, whatever it is, she told Miguel, hey, canon event coming, be on the lookout. don't like have anything too affected. Was the canon event her dad finding out she's Gwen, like Gwen is Spider-Woman, or was the canon event her supposed to be shot and then stuff got changed ultimately too? Did he tinker with what was supposed to happen? I don't know. And I don't know how much I buy into that notion too. Seeing Miles being Spider-Man doesn't discredit the canon. We just don't know what makes an event canon, as it's all limited to what we are able to observe and react to. The interesting thing about this too is Miles isn't Peter Parker. He's his own person. We only know the canon through all the Peters. Notice how in the Spider-Verse world, I always forget what it is, 2099, whatever it is. Anyways, in that world, Gwen is saying hi to all these different Peters, but there is no other Miles. At least there's no other Miles at that world, at that universe. But I don't believe that he's just not around in any other universes either. I think they just haven't been invited to the Spider-Verse world, which is a little interesting when you think about that. Or we just didn't see them in those takes. We only saw Peter's. And Peter's, I guess, canon, you could say, is Uncle Ben and Captain Stacy. Not Captain Stacy, a police captain and everything like that, too. And maybe that's how ultimately it's supposed to go down, where the captains die for Peter, the Uncle Ben thing and everything like that. But then you also have Miles, who is now the outlier anomaly. His uncle dies, the Prowler. Aaron Davis dies, so that's his uncle moment. And then I guess because his dad is captain, that'll be his captain moment too. But will it really? Because we just changed, he's an anomaly. So now we've just changed the canon. So again, how strict is the canon to actual like events? Or is the canon just this deterministic hoopla philosophy that people use? It's like free will versus determinism all over again. Arguing for one side where it's like I have choices and I can do what I can, and determinism being like your choices are determined for you, you have no idea. It's a mix of both probably. I'm not going to get into that because I don't care about that one philosophy 101 debate. It's done and over with. But what you should explore more is how malleable the canon is to what is actually plausible. Just like with us only being able to observe so much, for all I know, making this video is entirely deterministic on my own reactions, or I made it out of entirely free will choice, or it's both. And for Miles, it could be a matter of both as well. Maybe it is a little bit canon that his uncle is supposed to die, but maybe the route or the fate that's chosen or changes when he's making his own choices as well. We don't know how much of an impact any of this has, and I think it's kept purposely vague for that reason. All right, but in conclusion, guys, I want to quote from the original movie. It's a leap of faith.
When do I know I'm Spider-Man? You won't. That's all it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
Like, what's up, danger? Like, what's up, danger?
Miguel is attempting to have control and has forgotten the fundamental message of what we've learned from this new Spider-Man. It's about a leap of faith. You can't know how things will turn out, but you do your best to do what you can. Miles is taking a chance to save his dad because ultimately, what would you do? If you were told there is a chance or there is an opportunity or you know this is going to happen, but you can work to prevent it, or you can not work to prevent it, but you can try, you can make an attempt to try, would you do it, essentially? Is that the fundamental question of being Spider-Man for this newer generation? Miles is taking a chance to save his dad because he has the opportunity to, and it's that leap of faith that may or may not affect the outcome. We'll see what happens in the new Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, but perhaps all it will take for Miles is that instinct of that leap of faith. But what do you guys think? Am I wrong about Miguel? Can we really predict our fate and our future? Is the canon truly malleable, or is it pretty determined? And is it wrong for Miles to want to save his dad? I don't know. Comment below. Thanks for watching.